Attempts to create better soldiers have been around for a long time.
Seen enough, Captain.
Imagine if the entire US military looked like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or if every soldier in the PLA was like John Cena. But what if we could make them more than human? Today on Conspiracy Theory, we'll be diving into some of the secret programs to turn Private Pile
You are a disgusting fat body, Private Pile!
into the Terminator.
Get your fat ass over there, Private Pile! Oh, that's right, Private Pile! Don't make any fucking effort to get up to the top of the fucking obstacle!
Ancient aliens.
Of a reptilian Satanist pedophile group.
Conspiracy theory.
Place a clear quartz crystal on your 6th chakra.
You shot and killed Bigfoot.
Paid crisis actors.
Conspiracy theorists. CIA. Black sites.
Brain control weapon.
Conspiracy theory. The Earth is flat.
And just a conspiracy theory.
Sir! Yes, sir!
War in itself is a form of artificial selection. While you might be at home cowering from the inevitable draft to fight in the next Finno-Korean hyperwar, you wouldn't have had such luxuries as crippling property prices and high inflation if you lived in ancient Sparta, where trials to produce stronger babies apparently involved soaking them in wine and exposing them to the elements so that only the strongest would survive. This practice has since been perfected by the Scottish, who have discovered advanced methods of exposing fetuses to whiskey even while they are still in the womb. Eugenics is an ancient tool in attempts to create the ultimate soldier and/or citizen. Plato wanted people to be assigned a marriage number based on their qualities, and for them to only be allowed to marry people with a similar rating. This social credit score system would have been disguised as a lottery, where the top-rated people would be matched with their equals, while the plebes and genetic dead ends with a lower score would be matched with your mother. Famously sharp-dressed maniacs and winners of the European Bad Guy Awards 1939 to present, the Nazis, naturally dipped their goose-stepping toes into the arena of superpowered soldiers. Their eugenics program of racial hygiene, which involved euthanizing undesirables and disabled people, was actually imported from California, where it had been funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. This wasn't actually unusual for the world at the time, supported by a whole list of Teflon-coated famous people who somehow survived with their reputations intact post-war, including H.G. Wells, Theodore Roosevelt, George Bernard Shaw, and John Maynard Keynes. But as usual, the Nazis took things a little bit too far, demanding that officers in the SS had to prove they were of pure German blood back to the year 1750. This was still too pedestrian for the lederhosen-clad madmen who turned to chemicals to increase combat effectiveness. Enter Pervitin, a miracle drug that was available over the counter and found itself almost immediately snapped up for military use. The magic of this pick-me-up allowed the Third Reich to steamroller Poland in an incredibly awake, gum-chewing blitzkrieg where soldiers would stay up for up to 3 days at a time. The downside of this wondrous pharmaceutical is that it was methamphetamine. The Nazis loved meth, making it into Fliegerschokolade and Panzerschokolade, turning meth into a dessert format, giving air crews and tank crews a tasty treat. In 4 months in 1940, they churned out 35 million tablets, handing them out like candy. After a spate of heart attacks, the military finally had to admit that their super soldiers couldn't compete with Captain America, and they had to wind down their meth production, and with it, the dreams of an always vigilant German super soldier. We can only imagine the state of the bunkers the day after they stopped getting issued with their Wunder pills, as it probably resembled modern-day San Francisco.
This is good quality up here.
The equally genocidal USSR were not to be outdone in their efforts to create a superior communist combat machine. Ilya Ivanovich Ivanov was an actual mad scientist famous for creating a Z-donk, that's a zebra-donkey hybrid, who attempted to produce ape-human hybrids to form feces-flinging, face-tearing super-soldiers. In 1926, he was funded by the Bolshevik government to travel to Africa to find some apes. He initially wanted to kidnap women to use for his experiments, but that was seen as unethical. Describing that part of the program as unethical is like describing the surface of the sun as a bit toasty.
Why do people not like me?
You're a sociopath.
He first tried one way, that was inseminating female chimpanzees with human sperm. Please don't ask me where he got that because I don't want to know. When this failed, he wanted to try the other way, inseminating volunteer women with orangutan semen, but thankfully his last orangutan died before this could happen. In 1930, the Soviet government finally came to their senses and arrested him, but sent him in exile to serve in a zoological institute in Kazakhstan. This is a bit like arresting Roman Polanski and forcing him to serve out his sentence in a school.
I can change a diaper with one hand and console a crying toddler with the other. I am a woman of color. I am a mom. I am a cisgender millennial who's been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. Because of them, I stand here today a proud first-generation Latina and officer at CIA.
Next on our list of super soldier programs came out of the ADHD-riddled brains of the CIA and DIA, who foresaw the tremendous potential of the human mind. Not content with just strapping bombs to cats, kidnapping US citizens, or dosing the French with LSD, in the 1970s the CIA became convinced that the Soviets were developing psychic soldiers.
More of your mind control tricks?
This may have been disinformation being leaked to freak out the Americans, but it most definitely spooked the spooks. They brought in spoon-bending mentalist Uri Geller and experimented with remote viewing, using your mind to astral project around the world, which would be invaluable for spying on commie military activities. ARPA, who we'll come back to later, were offered the chance to come on board, but took one look at Uri Geller, called him a fraud, and wanted nothing to do with these shenanigans. Despite claims that in testing their psychic warriors were over 65% accurate, the program struggled for funding until it had a major victory in 1976, when the test subject Rosemary Smith successfully located a crashed Soviet Tu-22 outfitted as a spy plane in the Central African Republic. She apparently fell into a trance and relayed the coordinates of the plane, which were used to aim a spy satellite at the crash site, accurately pinpointing the location. The program was eventually renamed to Stargate and ran through until 1995, when a review found there was no evidence that it helped in any way, and it created a whole mountain of inaccurate guesses over the years. That said, was there really nothing to it? There were more than a few correct guesses, allegedly including the attack on the USS Stark and predicting the launch date of a Soviet submarine 4 months in advance. Project Stargate was only deemed unsuitable for intelligence gathering because it took too many resources to filter what was correct and what wasn't. What the report didn't find was that astral projection doesn't work at all. Maybe there are still some psychic spooks out there glowing in the dark somewhere.
Are you ready to make a world of difference? Be a part of the National Clandestine Service at the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. The work of a nation, the center of intelligence.
In 2008, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, formerly ARPA, who had trashed the CIA Stargate program, decided that everybody else was doing it wrong and threw $3 billion into making a proper super soldier. They know that what we want is genetically enhanced cyborgs, and damn it were they going to blow through a whole stack of Benjamins to get there.
Some experts are suggesting that the government should stop dumping all of our money into an enormous hole.
They decided to treat DNA like an Etch-a-Sketch in the metabolically dominant soldier program, attempting to give people the regenerative powers of Wolverine, the ability to live off your fat cells, which would create more power than the advent of fusion in the USA, development of turboroids, the ability to stay awake for days without sleeping, and even a vaccine for pain. That's not even the half of it. How about adding in the brain-machine interface program, focused on creating exoskeletons capable of running at 25 miles per hour and leaping 7 feet in the air, capable of flight, composed of liquid armor that hardens on impact, and laced with synthetic muscles. In 2017, they threw millions more dollars at a project to decipher the way the brain encodes information, with the aim of being able to upload software packages like Neo from the Matrix.
I know Kung Fu.
Truth is, it's difficult to say how much of this is wishful thinking designed to draw in politicians and their dollars, like jingoistic moths to a flame, but then again, we probably wouldn't know how successful they've been until it's time for another major war. What we have seen, however, is DARPA show a paralyzed woman using a brain-interfaced system to feed herself chocolate, and then the next time she was seen, she was flying an F-35 in a simulator demo. At least they still have an active project called Safe Genes, which aims to provide a reset button for gene therapy in case you start to go full Akira. Our final case study focuses on the Chinese mad scientist He Jiankui and his efforts in gene editing 3 babies with CRISPR in 2018. He removed the CCR5 producing gene from Lulu, Nana and Amy, and there was a massive international incident that saw him get sent to prison for 3 years for the biggest breach in ethics since the creation of double denim. You probably heard of it, and you most likely heard at the time that it was all about HIV resistance. Some strains of HIV use the CCR5 production gene to infect. The fathers of the children were all HIV positive, so our erstwhile scientist could pretty much taste the Nobel Prize that he'd get. AIDS! What you may not have heard is that CCR5 has another function. It suppresses memories and synaptic connections, and it has already been noted that people who naturally lack it do better in school. Mice with low levels of CCR5 protein have increased motor skills and faster learning. Interestingly, about 10% of Europeans and Eastern European Jews already have a genetic glitch that decreases CCR5 production. This was definitely part of a program to make superhumans, but is there anything to link this to Supersoldiers? Was this just a rogue scientist? Well, probably, although he had been given funding previously by the Ministry of Science and Technology. He basically told them that it was just to test CRISPR and editing of the CCR5 gene. He then apparently took unpaid leave and paid for the pregnancies himself without detailing it in his research grant. The gene genie is out of the bottle now though, and in about 20 years, if the children grow up healthy and faster and smarter, then it'll be difficult not to justify these modifications for everybody, soldiers included. As for He Jiankui, he was released from prison in 2022 and immediately went on to found another lab involved in gene therapy. Turns out, pushing the boundaries of humanity is a hell of a rush. In conclusion, by their nature, super soldier programs are secretive, and information on them often doesn't surface until years later, if ever. It's hard to believe that aggressive gene editing experiments haven't been taking place in some black site lab somewhere, especially seeing as one guy with some free time and a lab managed to edit DNA under the radar. Brain-machine interfaces are further along than you would expect, with Neuralink only being the most public example and most likely years behind DARPA. Who knows, maybe there's even a half-man, half-monkey out there somewhere. Thank you for listening right to the end of this video, and if you subscribe, you'll be first in line for the DARPA Cyborg upgrade.